This is the Movie Minds podcast, and today we watched the Warcraft movie.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of Movie Minds podcast. Over here.
I'm Brad. How you doing?
I'm Joe.
Brandon.
And Josh.
And we are having our first guest. Josh is one of the other teachers that works with us. And after a lot of coaxing, we finally got him on with the Warcraft movie, which you introduced. A lot of coaxing, like months of like, will you please come? And this was the movie that got him to join us. And I guess we can decide if that was a good thought or not. So yeah, Josh, since you literally, the reason I invited you is because I know you know more about the games than the lore. I figured, maybe you'd have something interesting to contribute.
Before you continue, I'm kind of disappointed.
Why?
Because you got this from the library.
Yeah.
You should have bought the film, man. It's so just.
I mean, I had two choices. My choice, well, I had a couple of choices. One of my choices would have been to pay the studio, for the privilege of renting or buying the film, or I could have perhaps gotten it through a less legitimate means, or I could have rented it from my local library and supporting my library, free resources for education, entertainment. So I say, excuse me, sir, this is evidence of nothing else to support your local library because they can bring you great pieces of art like the Warcraft movie.
Listen, I'm not saying anything against the library. I just thought you might want to watch it like every day for the rest of your life or something.
Well, this is the second time I've watched it.
Brandon really wanted to borrow it.
Watching this movie, you were so excited. You were like loving scenes.
I'm looking into
Josh.
Yeah.
Okay, excuse me. Introduce yourself, Brandon. Oh, you already did.
No, Josh, you talk about the movie.
Okay, yes, Josh. Please give us introduction to the movie. What little background, and then you'll be the first one to give us your opinion, and then we'll
a rating, or
we do ratings at the end.
Ratings at the end. Okay.
Clearly, never watched the podcast. Doesn't know the structure at all.
Yeah.
Straight. It's okay. We're very organized.
I will preface with not a huge fan of movies. That's why it took a lot of coaxing to get me on. So I had never seen this before. I've played the game for probably about 15 years now. The game is terrible at explaining lore to you, though. So you kind of have to go outside for resources on that. So I was a lot of payoffs from this movie. A lot of information that I hadn't seen in game. Only one Easter egg, though. A little Murloc noise at the beginning. But I guess thoughts on the movie is what you're asking for, right? The human parts were pretty boring. I don't feel like the characters on the human side of stuff were particularly important. But the Horde side, very good. I will say that in game I play the Horde, though, so maybe I have a stronger connection with them than I do to the Alliance and stuff like that.
Josh, would you since you're introducing it, would you do us the favor of trying to kind of summarize generally what the plot of this movie is?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the orcs, the Horde, are on a dying world. You'll come to find out that is due to fell magic by a warlock named Gan. And he is trying to bring the Horde, these orcs, to Azeroth, the home of the humans, the dwarves, and the night elves, so that they have a place to live, have some resources. So I'd say that's pretty much the plot of what went down. And then we get to see the battle that ensues, from the invading orcs.
All right. Well, I think we'll kind of go through and give opinions, and then you can maybe chime in with your thoughts about it. Brad, tell me your thoughts about the movie. Things that stuck out to you, problems, joys, complexities. I'm just like, what ran through your mind as you were watching it? What were your initial feelings?
Contempt. I had never played the game, so I know. I'm vaguely familiar with the world of Warcraft. The movie itself, heavily CGI. The story. So, gosh, I already went through the story there, but it kind of just talking about the story at first. Story kind of you see what the story is, and then it starts to lag. And I guess if you don't have any familiarity with the game, you're seeing all these names and places and things. So it's a little. So if Josh wouldn't have been here explaining some of this stuff, could easily get lost in that. I think the movie's a little too long for what they're doing there.
Which I have a question about at some point, which I want to let you all know about, and Josh specifically. But I guess I'll take over.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm the only person that's seen this before, but I saw it, I think, around the time it came out, and I actually don't have much memory of it though. I feel like it definitely didn't stick with me, didn't make much of an impression, and I remember not loving it that much. I really didn't like it, and I don't know if I really love it that much now either. I wanted to kind of try and figure out why that was. There's, especially since it's World of Warcraft, there is theoretically a lot of lore, a lot of story. There's a lot going on in the movie, but for some reason, large parts of it are honestly kind of boring and drag, like you said. And that honestly, there'll be a recording. I don't know if it'll come up probably before or after this. Literally of us watching it, and I might edit together a reaction. So that's the real joy of having Josh over here. Is I think that might be more entertaining, maybe than a review, because there's not that much that I took from it. There's some very basic story beats. There's some basic fantasy elements, but like Brad said, there's just a lot of stuff that there's a lot of references. There's a lot of names, but you're right.
Who's
John,
Merlin?
yeah, Merlin showed up in the movie at one point. No, but there's so many fantasy names and that you get lost in them. And I think part of the problem for me is I think what Josh mentioned, the human parts of this movie, which are the ones we're supposed to connect to because it's more grounded, they're the worst. They're
Yeah.
dull. All the actors are stunted. The dialogue's not particularly interesting. It's not shot very interestingly. The not much editing. There really isn't even much action in those scenes.
I don't know. I guess I know the orc world's dying, but I don't know anything about this other world. I don't know why I should care about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you can't connect to it.
And
It's just is like
So
it's a
Azeroth
little-
is the main world in
Yeah.
the game, which I guess is why you would care about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It
If-
just
if you have
it's
the
hard.
background.
I can see the difficulty. You're trying to put a game into a movie.
Yeah.
So it's with if somebody's never played the game, it's so big. It's trying to do so much.
in such a short
It's
time.
tough. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think that kind of maybe sticks to one of the issues I have with it is that one of the most important things for a movie like this is, or a game, even really any story, that it's a lot of times it's character based, and for as cool as the world is, if you don't really connect with the characters, if they're not fleshed out, if they aren't dynamic in some way, you're not going to care about the story. Like you said, I don't know really much about the orc world. I mean, I find the orcs generally interesting, but most of them, even our main character guy, I didn't know much about him. He was very simple. Most of these characters weren't much more than one dimensional. There were a lot of stereotypes.
Who would you say was the main character?
I don't know. That's the problem. Like the Dolthan, the orc guy,
Durotan?
Duratan. He was kind of, but he was gone for large chunks.
Well, it's
What's
odd.
the human hero that wins?
I think it was King Lane, and then I think Anduin was the
Anduin.
one that won at the end of the movie.
But he was
Like,
gone
flew off on the Griffin.
for
He
chunks. of it.
seems like the main character to me a little bit.
I think there's definitely a main villain.
But we thought he wasn't that good either. The Goltan. You said he was kind of the overarching.
I would say
evil-
that's the main villain.
Gul'dan, the
Gul'dan.
Warlock. Yeah.
What he's the main villain of the overarching story, but I think that who's the boss with the claw?
Renblack.
He's more the actual villain within the plot of this
Sure.
movie. So even thinking about we just watched this movie, who the actual characters and villains are and the motivate, like it's unclear. It doesn't stick out. A lot of that stuff's not very well defined, and maybe, like you said, they're trying to do so much. Maybe go smaller, like one part of the story, really flesh out the characters, because maybe they're just assuming, oh, you played the game, you're gonna like it, which is I definitely want to hear from Josh more about that. But that's my big issue with the movie. Maybe we'll talk more later. But Brandon, what do you think? You were loving it. You were like, you want to show this to the
Can I
kids?
jump in real fast?
Go
Like
ahead.
historical context, we were talking about Gul'dan being the main villain there.
Uh-huh.
Like historically, the expansions that have been out of to Legion, and Gul'dan was like by far the biggest villain at that point,
Mhm.
right? And in the game. So I think like you were supposed to kind of resonate with that, having knowledge from that. Is like, oh, Gul'dan's this puppet master behind the scenes conducting everything,
Sure.
right? You were supposed to be able to like you guys were saying, it was hard to identify with characters where like coming from my perspective, there were a lot of cool moments like when Ren got his hand shot early in the movie, and I was like, oh, okay, that's why he's going to have a claw in the game then, right?
And you like that?
And that stuff was cool. Where it's like you got these payoffs finally, where it's like, because like I said, it's really hard to get the lore from in game. Like you have to go to external resources like YouTube and stuff like that,
Huh.
or books to kind of get the lore of what's going on. So it was kind of cool to see it here in the movie. Is like, oh, I understand what happened to these characters now.
Is that a money making element to not have lore in the game? Because I'm thinking of like Elder Scrolls, where like, oh, you want to learn lore, you literally read a book in the game. Where I guess Warcraft, like you have to go buy the guide to explain stuff.
I think
should be in
it
the
just
game.
wouldn't be fun to be in like where like I think like Elder Scrolls and stuff like that. You're a single player game where you can take that time to kind of sit down and look
Mhm.
in game, and that's fine because it's just you.
Mhm.
Where in Warcraft, it's an MMO. You're supposed to be in a party. You're supposed to group up with people.
Mhm.
So the one person who maybe wants to stop and kind of dive deeper into the lore and learn more is going to hold up the rest of the party to do that. So that's
Gotcha.
probably why they don't introduce it in the game that way.
Okay.
And I also think that that's why the cutscenes in games are so poor quality. So
Okay.
right.
Brandon, your love.
Yeah, so
5 stars, 5 lines.
it doesn't really take a lot to get me excited about stuff when it comes to movies and
Mhm.
books. So I'm very easily entertained with that. But I will say, I'm happy Josh is here. One, because it made watching the movie a lot easier. But two, one concept that I've liked from this podcast from the beginning is the three of us teach 3 different disciplines. And luckily, my friend Josh here teaches the same discipline as me. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about, I'm sure Josh, hopefully, he might agree, he might not, but he'll understand where I'm coming from. And the first takeaway that I really had from the movie was um, I don't think this was ever meant to be marketed to get people to watch the game. I think this was a very niche audience in the sense that if
You weren't
play,
supposed to go from movie to game.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. That's kind of the first takeaway I had. I feel like the people, and it actually did better than we thought at the box office. I think it cost like 160 million to make, and it ended up getting like 423 million
Okay.
in revenue. So it did make a pretty decent profit.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the first thing. Like, if you're going to see this, like, you're a gamer that wants to see how the movie's going to be. It's
Okay.
not meant the other way around, in my opinion.
I agree.
The other thing with that too, and Josh and I, and actually Joe too, we're kind of talking about this. I think this movie was like World of Warcraft was really big with millennials growing up, right? I think the movie could have even been more successful had this come out like late 2000s, early teens,
Mhm.
where you're gonna have the whole family go. You know what I'm saying? Rather than just
Like my kids playing World of Warcraft. Let's go see the movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you got to think like right now that age group. Like I don't have any kids. Josh doesn't have any kids. Joe doesn't have any kids. So like I don't know. I guess it's just my business mind thinking. Like I'd rather get like a family of 4 or 5 to the movie theater rather than like a young millennial and their significant other.
I think it would have had to be a different story if they were going to release it earlier.
Okay.
Like I think the story, like I said, because of what was happening in the game, it made sense to do this story during what year was it? Like
2016.
16, right? Yeah. It made sense to do this particular movie in 2016 if they were going to try to high school or college or whatever. It would have had to be a different
storyline.
But there's plenty of stories you could tell in the game, right? I feel like a lot of these characters that were in here were very relevant to like I said, those 2 expansions, but in the grand scheme of things, maybe not as important of characters, and in like the overarching story.
Right. It's kind of necessary for this plot in the movie to happen.
Yeah.
We need some segues with these characters.
Where like I feel like stuff like that. It's probably like one of the most recognized World of Warcraft characters. I think that would have been around that time when you're saying like, oh, okay, this is like late high school, early college for the millennial group here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you would have done a story about the Lich King, I think that would have done really well because I feel like he transcended just Warcraft fans. I feel like if I showed you guys the box art of the Lich King, you guys would be like, "Oh yeah, I've seen that before. I know who that is."
I think I know who you're talking about.
He's in like the blue armor and stuff like that with the helmet and everything, right?
It sounds to me you're saying that it's possible there could have been a better story for a wider audience.
I think so.
Okay.
Yep. Interesting. I don't think this was particularly like the most important characters from Warcraft's lore coming out.
Okay. And I would say too, and I know I'm putting us on the spot here, but would this be because you don't really hear? Usually, you hear movies going to video games. You don't really hear the other way around. Like now, like you have the Mario movie and stuff, but before this, what video game has like transitioned over to a movie?
Which one?
Tron.
Oh, that would have been before this.
Well, there have been a couple. video game movies. Well, before that point, and that's one thing to keep in
very
mind too.
successful,
No,
yeah.
most video game movies, up until the last couple years, there have been some exceptions, have been pretty unsuccessful because you're trying to condense big things, and it's one thing might be more about gameplay versus story. I always liked the Mortal Kombat movie from the '90s personally. But that's one of the exceptions, but for a long time, most of them weren't very good. So I mean, honestly, even though I think that this is still kind of in the realm of that art of balancing those two mediums has not been perfected. I think it's a building block because a lot of video game movies before this either just didn't exist or they were probably even less quality.
Like
So
the first Mario movie from the '90s.
yeah, the first Mario movie is pretty wacky and has
Okay.
nothing to do. Yeah, it's less. That's a good example. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like we will take the IP and we'll just do whatever we want with it because nobody's gonna care. It's just you're gonna go see for the IP alone. So there were definitely some people that put some time thinking, okay, like you were saying, here's some Easter eggs, here's some more. If you play the games, you're going to appreciate more of this. So I guess yeah, I'm glad you said that, Brandon, because that does keep it in mind for my enjoyment. Like I might not be loving it, but it's not a movie made for me though. So I
Yeah.
have to keep that in mind. I guess I struggle sometimes with, um, even in the context of how it's being made, how well does it function as a movie itself? Because
That's what I was gonna allude to.
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Because
Um,
I'm thinking pacing and, like I said, the character stuff. I mean, Warcraft, I'm sure, has some rich lore.
Yeah.
I want to feel it in the characters. I want to feel it in the world. I mean, you might say a name and mention something, like you said, the orc world. I don't know anything about it. I know nothing about it, and why less investment. So
And that is something that the game visits. Then is that they go back to that place.
okay,
So I did want to mention. Remember Medivh, right? Like why he went bad,
hmm
right? And like I don't feel like this movie was clear on that at all. Like it was just Medivh's a traitor.
yeah, they
You
didn't
know,
really
tell
say
people that
anything. Yeah,
but
is
see, sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
is the fell energy that was like being put into the orcs and stuff by Gul'dan is fueled by this like demonic presence
mm.
over on their world, and they what the reason that they're bringing the orcs over is because the demons are planning to invade Azeroth. And Medivh knows
Oh.
that, so Medivh, kind of in a backhanded way, needs to get the orcs to Azeroth so that the orcs and the humans eventually in game are going to ally to fight off this demonic presence,
Mhm.
right? So it looks like Medivh's a traitor, but like I said, Warcraft really likes this morally gray concept.
I
So
didn't.
Medivh is kind of a morally gray character where it's like, I'm doing this bad thing of having these people invade our home, but
Mhm.
that's because we're going to need them in the future.
That's interesting because I guess when I think about like your stereotypical fantasy worlds and things I'm familiar with, there's a lot of like clear good, clear bad. So Warcraft does have
A
more
lot of
morally
morally
gray.
gray, yeah.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. That's cool to hear though.
On that note, and I'm happy.
Timestamp it.
No, no timestamp. I'm speaking for the movie as a whole.
Yes.
I'll be honest. I'm not gonna go out and play the game after watching it, but I will say, I think
Ooh.
if I was watching this and didn't know I would have never thought that it was based on a video game. I thought they did a good job with a storyline. Like it had a clear, like in my opinion, it was good enough to watch
By itself.
by itself.
Okay.
I'm not saying it was great by any means, but Josh here certainly helped understand what's going on. But I thought as a standalone, like you could have a general understanding of what's happening. Does that make sense?
I feel like if I didn't know the characters, I feel like I would have been very. I feel like I would not
I was a bit lost.
have liked the movie as much.
Okay.
Yeah. Like if I wanted to be able to be like, oh, I knew who that character is. I know what he's going to do in the future, or what he's done. Right.
Pretty much. And you got elves and dwarves for no reason.
Oh yeah.
Because then you're like, what is this like an earth thing? What's going on? And then I know what you mean because
Yeah.
it's like a fantasy movie, so you could just watch it. But then I think it's reaching out too far.
I feel like I had
He's
a
on his
greater
own.
appreciation for it because I knew like what the characters
I'm trying to keep that in mind too. But so your enjoyment of the movie, I guess, is I want to think it's the highest, but I'm not sure. Um, I don't know. Do we have any other thoughts, discussions before we just give our minds?
You remember Leroy Jenkins?
I do.
That's World of Warcraft,
Leroy
right?
Jenkins.
Yeah.
That's honestly most of my knowledge. Yeah.
I did want to bring up one thing that kept happening in the movie is background like Orc 2 or Orc 3.
That was
It felt
funny.
like you guys like really like reacted well to them and like their like what they were doing in the movie, right?
Well, they added to the world. Like,
Yeah.
there are other
Orc
people
3
involved.
So
Shame on you. You're not
Yeah.
involved.
We really do have to appreciate the cinematic
Quality.
presence of Orc 3.
Oh yeah, the performance of Orc 2. I mean, give him the Academy Award. You still.
But the reason I wanted to bring that up is talking about the conversion of video games to like movies or other media platforms is we recently had Fallout come out, the TV show, which has not a single like in-game lore character brought over to into the TV show.
Reference to dog.
Right, yeah, there are references and stuff, but those characters were really strong, and it made it easy to connect with those characters because you didn't need the backstory to understand what was going on.
See, that's the thing. You're bringing up that point. Yeah, I just watched Fallout recently, and it's a good way to kind of gauge how far we've come. Like Fallout as a show,
It was amazing.
And Honey, you probably could chime in. You like Fallout, right? And you played like a few seconds of the game, right? Yeah. 5 minutes. And like just as a story on its own, Fallout holds out so well, but it's also true to the game. I think the Warcraft movie, I definitely don't think is on the same level as something like Fallout.
Where I'm almost saying, where you guys were connecting with these background characters, or like these non-named characters, I guess, would it almost have been better to do a story of like Warcraft lore characters, and would that have been easier to resonate with for the general audience?
Personally, I'm thinking if they focused on like a small band of like maybe 4 or 5 orcs on some mission to recover something, I would probably get so much more to learn about those couple characters and that part of the orc culture than this big world with races and places. I'm lost and confused, and I don't know the characters. So a smaller story, I think, would have benefited.
Which is why I'm thinking. I think that maybe video game movies can learn and TV shows can learn from this, where it's like you don't need to bring these big name characters out. You can go with the smaller character because it makes it easier to get invested because you're smaller scale.
On that point too, it really did feel like I was watching like cinematic video game. The whole, like, you know how when you play a video game and like there's like a little like
cutscenes,
5-minute clip of something, then you do the challenge, like that. That's kind of what this just felt like one giant.
Except instead of no challenge, we kept getting these really boring humans talking.
But you're right. It does feel like we strung together a lot of the cutscenes and just we should have the gameplay in between, and that's your like 10-hour.
And that's where you're saying that little band of like orcs or humans that are off doing their own thing. That's what was missing.
Do you think that, well, maybe it would have worked better for a movie, but do you think that something like this, if you're trying to do a bigger story, it's kind of like when they're trying to adapt these big fantasy things, would this have worked better as a series or a mini-series, like 8 episodes or a couple seasons versus...
Which I will say, if you guys have watched the movie, I kind of like this lore. They had a series called Warbringers, and then, which has to do with a lot of the leaders of the orc clans in here on YouTube. It's on the Blizzard YouTube channel. Fantastic. The cinematics that they make outside of their games, amazing, right? And that will teach you a lot more about the characters that you're seeing.
All right. Well, any other thoughts? Got some more good ones out there.
Oh, I have to ask you guys, for the Horde or for the Alliance?
A Horde.
For the Horde?
Horde. Orcs are so much more interesting to me.
Yeah, probably.
Horde?
Yeah.
Horde.
Yeah.
I'm Team Horde.
For the Horde?
For the Horde.
But I'm not team. Oh, I like the Horde, but I don't like the
What's the troll?
And the ogres.
What the heck? I didn't like the main the guy that made them eat or drink.
Gul'dan.
I didn't like Gul'dan, but I like the orcs.
Like Durtan.
The good orcs.
I think
they got a sense of honor. They look cool. It's like bar. It's cooler. And there's like emotion because they're CGI, other than the deadpan King.
Well, King Lane was just asleep with every scene, though.
The humans were boring.
And that's like half the movie.
Okay, so that's a common complaint in the game too, is that the Horde side of the story and everything is a lot more compelling and drags you in a lot more than like the human and the dwarf. I think that's almost because that like the human elf dwarf thing has almost been done too much, right? Like the orc troll, and then there's the Tauren, which are like humanoid cow people on the Horde, right?
We'll see them.
That's unique to World of Warcraft,
like racing,
and that's a more compelling story then, because it's like, oh, I want to see what's going on here with that, and then they're like the Horde is always like fighting for survival, where the Alliance, it's like, oh, we have everything, we just need to make sure the Horde don't do the thing.
Gotcha.
Right.
It's more interesting.
So I agree. That's why I've always played.
All those characters, for the most part, are from the game.
Yeah, I think it was like the one lady in the black cube.
Yeah,
Right.
well,
I've never heard of her.
Oh,
yeah.
Right. I at least I know of King Lane. I don't know anything about him.
But
Right.
like
'cause he died.
Anduin.
Yeah. So remember I pointed out that little boy
Yeah,
Varian.
yeah.
Right. He's eventually going to be king, and his son gets named Anduin. So I don't know anything about that Anduin. Right. But like that's what I'm saying. With like the human people, they died like before the events of World of Warcraft. At least that's my understanding. But all of those Horde characters, because of the time travel in the game, they get brought back in. So those were like interesting characters then too. And is that because the human characters are boring that they chose not to bring them back in? You know what I
Well,
mean?
it's interesting that almost reflects what we saw in the movie. You're like, oh, the human story's not that much interesting comparatively. Well, they almost showed that in the movie by not putting as much effort into making it interesting, which I think hurt the movie. But then again, give us a movie just about orcs.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that's interesting. Wow. Okay.
But a lot of you guys' opinions seem to like coincide with the opinions of people playing the game.
Oh, okay.
Because like the Alliance story is generally more boring than the Horde side of the story. So
So when you play the game, you can pick what side you're gonna play as.
Yep.
They date each other.
Yes, I was saying, are they allowed to cross the stream?
So it, like for the first probably like 12 years of the game, it would be like Alliance, and then every few expansions there would be some existential threat that they have to join forces to fight, and then we go back to beating each other up, right? And then like the past few years, it's been like when you would go and do dungeons, you could only do it as Horde or Alliance, but now you can, much to Brandon's dismay, you can join forces.
Oh, mixing it up.
Like an orc and a human can go into the dungeon together now.
They can work together. They can see bonds of peace and unity. You don't like that. People should stay in their
I don't think
lane.
he's against working together. I think he's against
A marriage and one.
No. Little backstory.
Connecting more intimately.
As we were watching the film, and I purposely haven't picked any Marvel films to review for this podcast
because they went too far.
No, because I think Marvel movies like after the first like 4 or 5 kind of just become too much, and I don't think they're good to review. But my favorite Marvel movie is Guardians of the Galaxy, and to me, like I don't know, I just always thought maybe because I'm a realist, but I'm like the whole alien human romance. It's like that's not.
Love,
I know it's supposed to be a movie, but
love.
I'm like I can't relate to that. Like, in Star Wars, my favorite superhero. So
we gotta get him to play Mass Effect.
Seriously, yeah, you can just be with different alien romances. There's so many different storylines. They push that boundary. Love, it transcends, man.
Yeah, but that can also be dangerous if you remember from Guardians 2. Ego.
Well, he was able. This is becoming a different podcast.
A certain Kurt Russell.
All right, yeah, the great Kurt Russell. He was an evil planet. Kurt Russell. Okay.
Josh, is there anything else though you want to like just some more backstory or like history of the game, or
are orcs taller than humans?
My understanding is not in the game, but I was very surprised to see orcs being like 2 times the size of humans in the movie.
Are you happy that you can come to Movie Minds podcast to ask these fundamental questions about
cinema?
Are orcs taller? Yeah. That's the question we wondered. Let us know. See, I mean, I feel like we're just delaying the inevitable because I want to get those minds out.
And you said during the movie, do you want to do it as
I'm not doing it
with
See, nobody wants to.
I think Josh should be the last.
Do you want it with?
I'm gonna go first because I know you're all trying to hold off from saying what we really think.
This guy's
with the knowledge that like with my added commentary.
Yeah.
Yes.
You want to give them the rating without.
I'm going to do this first so people are okay. It's okay. We can do this. All right. Everyone's afraid to offend each other. Done. Okay. Okay. Look. Yes. I think some explanation of how you look at things. Josh, I think you being here to kind of add some commentary and your perspective did help.
And Joe, I really appreciate being here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm glad. I hope you'll come back again, maybe when we do Toy Story 2 or something.
Oh, okay.
Because I know you'll have to, but I mean, you got your time, and now other people are like, oh, we got to be on.
Yep,
so,
it's true.
Thank you. You'll set the precedent.
I do like the guest.
No, in all honesty, like I might have mixed feelings about the movie, but it was really fun hanging out watching with you. Watching with you guys.
I had a good time.
So that's the real win.
Nice. Yeah.
So I would like to do it again, but
CGI guess.
No, we'll get a digital composite of Josh next time, just a still up against the chair. He's here and
Can we just get like random people off the street? Like, hey, we have this movie podcast.
We have to go to a neutral.
We'll go to Brandon's house.
I didn't know y'all was eating.
Maybe we'll get the doc on.
Hey, I think
You got to undo that curse.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a curse because it kept freezing while we were watching like 3-4 times.
This is the third episode in a row where something has happened. This time it was with the movie itself.
Guys, make sure to support your local libraries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. That's the real message. Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna go first.
Should go to the library.
I get all.
I never think about the library. But okay.
Hold on,
No.
we can't sit here and say that the library wasn't even mentioned in the film, though. Remember?
Library.
Oh yeah, because
Library
they go to the wizard's.
Oh yeah,
library.
they.
Oh yeah, where they could have walked up the steps. They could have teleported the steps. I'm gonna make you walk 18 flights, but you're a magician. You can
I saw
teleport.
you in the library. That's right.
They're
That's
saying
why I was in the
Saving
library.
this movie with just jerks.
To be fair, Morose and Anduin
His
do
name's
not have
Morose.
Morose.
Oh, I didn't think of it. Yeah.
Morose. That's why he's a jerk.
they do not have magical powers. So
All right, see that, but here, see, you adding explanation takes away from the gags. Like that's the problem. Okay, all right.
I will say though, real quick, that library, like whenever he met the woman, like that was so like
Q one.
the one where he's like, I know you
And
from
Q.
the library.
From the library.
Yeah, I was expecting that to be so much more like
The
impact on
librarian.
You're the guy from the library.
Okay, sorry, Joe. Go ahead. I know.
All right. See, I keep asking if anyone wants to say something, and then I try to give my review, and then it's like,
I'm done.
we got another. Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Libraries, orcs, feeling. Brad, you have anything? Want to get out of your chest?
Cool, man.
Trying to.
it was really cool to get to see. Honestly, it was really cool to get like Mont Gras is like an important part of the lore, but the in-game cinematics don't do it justice. So getting to see it in the movie here, twice too was really cool.
The honor fight.
The honor, yeah.
The Klingons are similar.
Yeah, I was thinking it sounds very Klingon. Probably some inspiration.
Sure.
It's very similar. What was that called, honey? The Klingon battle when Worf like fights. What's that called? What do they do that? Is there Mach?
Is it Mach something?
Is it Mach-Ta or what is that?
It is Mach
What's that?
something.
Is it
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
Mach-Ta?
All 40 people that come to see that.
Hey, you know what? Spiegel's here, so it'll boost our.
Yeah,
our
that
views
is
again.
true. That is true.
Batleths, yes.
Oh. Anyway.
I think that the movie was okay. I didn't really love it. I definitely think it was enhanced a bit by the experience of watching with you in the commentary and the laughs. Having seen this movie before, I thought it was kind of boring. There were some interesting moments, but it goes up and down a lot. But considering the fact that it was made for a specific audience that I think would enjoy it more, I'll give it a slightly higher grade. Because of that, I'm going to put it middle of the road with 2.5 nines. If it was just my own opinion, it would probably be lower, like 2, maybe even less. I was not very engaged by it, but there were some cool moments. But it's kind of average for me. So now, somebody trump that.
Well, how many mines you give it?
I gave it 2.5 mines.
Oh,
2.5.
Oh, sorry.
I gave it middle of the road, 2.5 mines. In my heart, it's
That
probably,
sounds.
no,
We've been given a lot of mine.
Yeah, no, yeah. So I'm 2.5 mines is like is my critic review of like trying to be less biased. If it was based on my own personal enjoyment, it'd probably be like 2 or 1.5. Honestly, I didn't really like the movie that
If
much.
you were just watching it
By myself, I thought it was very unengaging, confusing. Some good, really. I think it's elevated a little bit by the audience I know it's for, but personally, it would probably be more like 1.5. I'm giving it 2.5 for everything.
Well,
Considering that.
Okay.
You going next, man?
Yeah, I actually owe you an apology because
for interrupting me like 5 times.
Well, no, because I heard like I got a text message from my dad, and then when like as soon as I got it, he said 2.5.
This sounds just like our season.
I showed up late.
It's like the trip to the we showed up 20 minutes late for golf clubs or whatever the excuse was, and now you're like, see,
a random guy asked me for directions that I did have to stop for, but I did.
Was that in the neighborhood?
No, it was on some back country road. He's like, "Do you know where Willow Drive is?"
Wait, where were you at when you asked?
At the 4-way stop. At the 4-way stop.
You were at the stop, Nias?
He was across. He was at the stop. It was a 4-way stop. He was
in a vehicle.
Yeah, he was like.
He just popped out the window.
Hey.
Where's Willow Road?
Yo, in relation to where Willow Road, like, is it in the same state?
I think he was like dropping something off. It was obviously very upset with the woman that.
See, that's what the podcast should really be about, just the random stuff that prevents us from doing things we originally were going to, broadcast for.
Yeah.
He's delaying so hard.
Well,
Anyway.
I know why too, but we won't say why. I know why.
Well, here's my minds. I actually have the same. I was gonna give it 2.5 as well. Like
Okay, but is that like your general feeling? Are you trying to caveat with
I'm being dead serious.
All right, fine, 1.5 months.
Okay, 2.5 still.
Okay,
Like,
that sounds better then. Okay.
I thought.
See, I'm not fine.
So you're changing to 1.5?
Yeah, that's in my heart. It's 1.5.
Okay, well,
yeah.
I also in my heart is 2.5. Like
Okay.
I really thought it was an average like movie. Especially nowadays with all the other CGI stuff that's out there. I thought this was very like average. If I would have like played the game growing up, I think, or if I would have had more of a connection to it in some way, maybe I would have given it more. But from someone that has no idea about World of Warcraft,
Merlin was in it.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, honestly,
we got to the ending scene where I almost called him Merlin. Where the dude died. Brandon, I think like 5 times throughout the movie,
well, he had so many different
he did
appearances.
transform a lot. That's true.
He was confusing, which is why I think that the movie had he had 12 different names because it's confusing to follow.
Yeah, and that's I'm giving it 2.5. Yeah, and honestly, like we talk about where was Shrek, where was Merlin, where was
Shrek?
where was Shrek?
Everyone's in a mock garage.
No, but I actually was thinking 2.5 before you went. So that's my final review. 2.5. I liked it. I don't think I would have liked it as much if you guys weren't here though. I'm happy Josh was here for content. I'm happy that everybody was here for the humor. I think there was some good laughs at the movie's expense. But overall, yeah, average movie. 2.5 mines.
I think Josh should go last.
Okay, I'll go. Yeah, I'm gonna take this movie. So it was fun to watch it as a group. I'm gonna judge the movie because I have no knowledge of the game, so I'm just.
You know Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, I know that's it.
Unfortunately, not in the movie.
Yeah, I can't believe we're Jenkins 4 out of 5, but the movie itself, like I have no other knowledge. I knew about it. I knew that it works and things. So I'm just if I had come upon this movie by myself and watching it, I thought it was, like I said, a little disjointed. I didn't know what was going on. It was a little too long. Also, it just seems like to me, because just judging it as a movie, it's like a lot of like Tolkien rip-off things. Even the guy's named Andrew, and it's a river in Middle Earth.
Well, as we said, they're watching it a lot. You can't every fantasy,
but you
thing
can't
is,
help it.
Yeah, it's not really a.
So, yeah, the human it just was like.
Well, it was more like I get not to interrupt too much, but I felt like there were just certain shots that felt very much like Peter Jackson,
Yeah,
like the mountain, and what's the one city that the capital?
Stormwind?
It looks like Gondor. It looks like Gondor.
Well, I think you said that when we got to Karazhan, to Medivh's Tower.
Yeah, one of them was just like this. Just looks like Gondor.
Are you talking about the one where I said, "Oh, this is really bright," which is weird because I thought.
Yeah,
it was
I think
so. That's Karazhan.
Okay. Maybe that's why, because it's not destroyed in the game. So.
Yeah. Well, it did by the end.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I usually, and also this is just me, I usually don't like movies that are heavily CGI and things like that. Anyway, there were some parts like you could begin and like the storyline was interesting with like you already talked about the gameplay, like with more with the orcs, what's going on, and then it would just hit this lull. Like to be honest, if I was watching this by myself, I would have probably turned it off. I might not have even finished it. I don't know. That's just me.
It was tough for me to get to in the theater, honestly.
So it was, it's fun to watch it like that. And you were telling a lot, so I had to ask you questions about things. So I'm gonna give it 1.5 points. That's my.
Okay, so I first giving my opinion as if I didn't have all of the background knowledge that I do, is that I didn't feel I wouldn't have felt a very strong connection with any of the characters in this movie. And I think as a result of that, the horde side that we were saying was like the better half of the movie would have lost a lot of meaning for me if I didn't know who those characters had done stuff with them in game or whatever, right? And the human side truly awful, right? For the Horde, right?
Yeah.
But I think I would have given it maybe a benefit too. There were some pretty interesting sequences in there. I feel like the battle scenes were compelling enough to kind of get drawn in.
Last one was good.
What's that?
The last one was
Yeah.
good.
And I think the Mak'gras were pretty exciting, even if you don't really know what's like the significance behind those and stuff. Speaking as a Warcraft fan, though, right, with the background knowledge, and like I said, if you want to get lore, you kind of have to go outside of it. So I am someone who does go and watch. I've never read any of the books, but I have gone and watched YouTube channels and stuff to, get more knowledge about what's going on in the game. So I wouldn't say that I'm someone that's seeking out all of the knowledge of what's going on, but
Sure.
the story's compelling to me. I do want to be a little bit more invested in it while I'm playing.
Sure.
I would give the movie a 4.
So
As its target audience, I would give it a 4.
As a Warcraft fan, you think it's a good resource?
Yeah. I think that it was really cool seeing how some of these characters ended up the way that they did.
I could tell as we were watching it, there were points where you were actually, "Ooh, this is cool."
Yeah, like this is really cool that they added this in.
And you
I told
learned
you-
stuff too.
Yeah, I did, and I did learn some things while I was watching.
See, I told you you'd like it.
Yeah,
I thought you'd appreciate it.
And I think the reason that I'm going with a 4 is when the movie came out in theaters, a bunch of my friends that were playing the game went and saw it in theaters. I was like, oh no, like I'm not a big movie guy. I don't want to go see it. I regret not going and seeing it with them when it came out. So I think a 4 is probably a good rating for this. This isn't a masterpiece or anything.
No, but
And I think there were some issues with it.
Not according to Ricky Hager.
Do you think you played Warcraft?
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
You better give it 3 minds minimum.
But I do think that there were some inconsistencies between, and maybe that's just a gap in my knowledge. But like I said, the lady in the cube didn't. I'm not sure that that's really a character that
Also
ever
said
happened.
that there were some inconsistencies with spells and stuff like that.
Yeah, like a lot of the human spells that were being cast. So there's like I was saying, there's 3 spells of magic that mages cast, and that's Frost, Fire, and Arcane. So when Medivh's doing the big like lightning channeling thing, that's like a shaman spell for orcs that they would do. So I don't really know where that was kind of disappointing because I'm pretty sure there was a cinematic for that in game and it happened very differently, so that kind of didn't happen. But for cinematic effect, it was cooler, I guess. So yeah, no, it was a solid movie as the target audience for it.
Good. All right. That's kind of what I thought. Well, that's Movie Minds podcast reviewing the Warcraft movie.
Make sure to like and subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe. Recommend future videos for us to do, movies to watch, stuff like that. And we'll say goodbye now.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.